In this video, we are going to talk about translations. A translation is a type of transformation also called a slide. So sometimes a translation is called a slide, but the math term is translation. Here are some examples of slides. A firefighter slides down a pole, and a flag slides up a pole, and a child on a playground slides down the slide. What's really important to know about a slide is that the beginning position and the end position are the same. So when this firefighter goes down the pole, he or she starts in this position and ends in the same position. The person doesn't get all twisted up and end up upside down when they get to the bottom of the pole. So they start and they finish in the same position. The same thing with the flag. The flag is placed onto the flagpole in its normal position, and as it goes up, it doesn't change position. It just moves, but it doesn't turn sideways or flip around. So it stays in the same position. And the same thing with a child on the playground. A child going down a slide starts in the same position and hopefully ends in the same position, and doesn't end with their feet kind of all twisted and their body and their head at the bottom, right? That would be kind of silly. So a translation is a slide, and what's important to remember is that you start and finish in the same position when you slide. So let's start with this green rectangle. Well, if I'm going to slide it, I could slide it this way, or I could slide it this way, or I could slide it this way, or I could slide it this way. But you'll notice that the rectangle isn't changing position. I'm not all of a sudden like turning it sideways and making it bigger or making it change the way it looks. So that's really important. This picture shows an example of how we would describe a translation. So let's start with the shape. Here you see a shape. And that's our starting point. It's always the shape. And then what happens is this shape was slid over here as a slide, and this is the image, and it finished there. Now you notice the shape is in the same position, it just moved. It didn't twist, it didn't turn, it didn't get bigger, it didn't get smaller. It's the congruent shape, the same size, same shape, it's just in a different spot, but it never turned. Okay, that's really important to know. Now when I look at the translation arrow, that translation arrow is really important because it tells me that we went from here, we started here, and we ended up over here. So this is the original shape that we start with, and this is the image. We always start with the shape, and then we move or translate to the image. So let's look at now how much it moved. This here, these two things are how we describe a translation. So what we have to do is pick a vertex. So let's say this one. This is the one that this picture picks. And we have to match it to the same vertex on the image. So a vertex from the shape has to match the vertex on the image. And then we count the number of squares that it moved. So we don't count it by going at angles like this. We count it by how many did it move left or right, and how many did it move up or down. That's really important. So we can see that it starts here and it went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares to the right, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 squares down to end up there. So remember, we're matching the same vertex on the shape and image, and we count how many squares left or right it moved and how many up or down. So let's do some examples together. Now, when you do this, you should probably use a very special instrument called a ruler. Yeah, I'm not going to use one because I don't have one with this app that I'm using. So I'll use my finger. It might be a little messy, but you should always use a ruler. So I'm going to start by drawing a shape. and I'm just going to make a square. Alright, that's my shape. That's the original image. The original picture is a shape. Now I'm going to translate it and make an image. So I'm going to make an image somewhere else on here. Let's go right here. Alright, that's my image. So my original is called the shape. Now what I need to do is draw a translation arrow. So because I went from my shape to my image, I will draw an arrow like this. The arrow goes from the shape to the image. And now we want to describe how many squares did it move left or right and how many up or down. Well, you can see that it looks like the squares moved right and then down. So let's pick a matching vertex on each one. If we want to pick this one right there, I just highlighted it with red, which vertex do you think will match it to? This one? No. What about this one? No. It needs to be this one. It's so important that you match the vertex. Now I can determine how many squares left and right it went. So following the line of the vertex, here's the line of the vertex, where they would meet there, I can find out how many squares left and right. So starting here, we moved 1, 2, 3, 4 squares to the right, so I can write 4R, and that's okay because 4 right, and I went 1, 2, 3 down, so I can write 3D. So to describe the translation, you would say it moved 4 right and 3 down. Let's do another example. I'm going to start by drawing my shape. There's my shape. Remember, you'll use a ruler. And now I'm going to draw the image. And the image I'm going to draw here. Does that look good? No, that doesn't look good because this is not the same as this. It needs to be congruent. So I'm going to draw the image again, and I'm going to try to make it congruent, which means same size and shape. Does that look better? Alright, so there's my image. So I've labeled my shape and my image. Which way do you think the translation arrow goes? Well, it would go this way because it starts at the shape. You always start at the shape. This is the original, and then you move toward the image. Now, to describe the translation, remember we have to pick matching vertices. So which vertex do we want to choose on this one? Well, on my shape, let's choose this one right here. And now we have to connect it to this one right here. Those are matching vertices. If I chose this one here and this one, I wouldn't get a very accurate translation because those are not matching vertices. You have to match the vertices. So we'll go from here to here. So how many did I move? Well, let's start here. 1, 2, 3 to the left. So I moved 3 left. And from that point, 1, 2, 3 up. Excellent. If you do it the wrong way and you go from the image to the shape, you would get a different answer. You would get 3 down and 3 to the right. And that wouldn't be correct because we always go from our shape, the original picture, to the image. And that is translations.